Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. I'm going to try to be quick today as I'm trying to slip this in right at the end of the day before I have some friends coming over. So I wanted to see if I can do this all in one take. We'll see how it goes. But I wanted to show you some work that's being done for a customer currently. There's work in progress, and I wanted to preview the work that's been done so far with the customer. And there's a couple questions I have about a few modifications. But I also wanted to give you a chance to see how I'm doing one of my more complicated molds to try to cast a grate to fit into some of these pieces that are based on Hirst Arts molds. And I've been having a little trouble with the mold, so I wanted to maybe put it out there. I've gotten a lot of help from viewers in the past, and maybe you might have some suggestions on how I can get a few bubbles out of the cast that I'm working on. But I'm going to show you that at the end of this video. So first, let's take a look at some of the pieces that I have built here and show you what they are and some ideas I have about finishing them. The first piece that you see here is designed to accompany the arena and the other pillars that I had constructed for a customer previously, which I've shown in a video I did, I don't know, a couple months back maybe now. When he received the arena, he wanted a few extra pieces to place in the arena to feature more variations in gameplay and an overall design and feel of the arena. One of the pieces that he requested was a pit. Now, he wanted 2 pits, and not much else was provided in terms of information for that, except that it would have a grate that could be placed in it and then be removable. I recently obtained the new octagon fieldstone tower mold from Hirst Arts, and right away I thought that that would make an excellent piece to do the pit, as it provides a nice round opening rather than going for a perfect circle, say with say the 4-inch round stone tower. And also keeps in with the fieldstone, which are the other pieces that have been produced for the arena in the previous shipment, actually. Now, one of the things that you may notice, of course, is this large flange that goes around it. The Hirst Arts blocks, when they cast and they're 1/2 inch thick. And I felt like just having that 1/2 inch there felt a little bit too much like a hurdle for, figures to travel across and to pose, sort of a barrier that feels, to me a pit is supposed to feel more like something in the ground rather than something above the ground. So what I did is, using some of the floor tiles from the octagon fieldstone mold, I built a flanged walkway around it so that it makes it seem a little bit easier for miniatures to move up onto it and move across it, but not in any way, and sort of reduce that overall lip height around it to make it feel like it's a little bit more part of a built-in structure rather than just a ring that was placed on the ground. Gives it a little foundation feel, and that's the look I was kind of going for. The pit will be painted black in the center, and that's going to get a grate that's going to be able to slip into here, and then I'm going to put a little hook on it, like something that people might attach a chain to remove the grate for play, so you can have it either as an open pit or as a closed pit that people could cross. Figures, I should say, people, maybe. The second piece is a monster entrance. And the monster entrance, I've actually done a monster entrance in the past, and for this one, because I have access to some new Hirst Arts molds, I decided to capitalize on those and transform the monster entrance into something that was a little bit more substantial, and I felt like had a little bit better visual look overall. So the monster entrance is, this is 3 inches wide at this point here, and is about 3.5 inches long and stands just about 3 inches high, maybe a little higher at the peak. These are arches that have been pulled from the Ruin Fieldstone mold, which is another nice mold, so I figured I'd tap into that as they produce kind of a nice footing for the overall entrance. Again, trying to give it some sense of weight on the table. It's a built-in structure rather than something that's just placed there. The top cap I thought I would do would be this little tooth mold here, which comes off of the octagon mold, and then kind of follows with the tooth molding coming down the side, just to give it, I don't know, I wanted something a little aggressive. I was going to try to put teeth on the front to give it sort of that monster entrance feel, but I couldn't find any that fit it really well without looking really garish, and so I decided to just go with something along the side here. I am contemplating maybe doing some sconces, I think that's what they are, on the side for some torches maybe to light the front of it, but that's optional at this point, and I haven't put them on because I wasn't really sure if that was something that I really wanted to be pursued either by me or the customer, so we'll see when the feedback comes in on that. The monster entrance will be painted flat black in the center here, and then it will receive that grate. Now the grate, when I show you in a second, is a pretty heavy wide-barred grate, so it's going to obscure most of the visibility into the interior of this. And it's also going to have a flat black bottom as well. And I really just want the interior of this to look empty black, because really it's representing a subterranean entrance going below the floor of the arena. And so rather than try to model or paint in stairs, we're just going to go flat black, and then it'll just look like a void. The third thing that's for the arena are a new set of pillars. The pillars that were requested were a little bit larger than the ones I had done previously. Let me remove these caps here for a second. And he wanted it to have a cross across the top such that it could hold miniatures who could walk across the tops of the pillars, and also that the pillars meet flush on the sides so the pillars could be placed against each other to form a wall, so that you could assemble multiple pillars together or even in an L shape, and then you could create unique movement impassable areas depending on how you arrange them in the arena, and still have a movement ability on the top for figures to be able to interact or fire down upon figures that are down below. There is a request for some ladders to accompany these so that figures can scale to the top from the bottom of the arena. The ladders are not complete at this point. The other thing in terms of changes that I thought about is dressing the corners of these with maybe these little pointed caps. I kind of like the look of it, and I was really debating about whether to include these, because I was thinking that perhaps these corners might be playable areas, and I might leave them open for miniatures to be able to access. Because most of the corners are covered now, mainly by these support columns which I've built onto the side, these come from the Fieldstone Bridge mold, and they really were the right fit. After a lot of deliberation, I spent quite a bit of time trying to parse out what to do with these, and I wanted something that was substantial on the sides to dress them up, but also to give more plausibility to the fact that there's a walkway up above that's actually supported. And so having these come all the way up to the top and meet most of the bricks, well, cobbles or whatever they are, along the top walkway really helps to give that feel that this is a legitimate walkway on the top rather than just a bunch of flat blocks that have been glued there and are overhanging some empty space. Not very believable for Fieldstone. And the other thing that I thought about as I was working with these is one of the nice things is that because the Hirst Arts floor tiles are in 1-inch squares, you automatically have a 1-inch grid for movement of the figures across the top. So again, lacking that at the bottom where there isn't really quite enough space, I thought just a little corner, make it look a little bit more sort of foreboding. This is definitely not someplace you can actually walk, and actually kind of, let me see here, I'll move this out of the way. Let me lower this camera just a little bit. Don't mind the jarring. Oh, that's as low as we're going. Okay. There we go. But when you bring them all in line, it sort of gives that feel of a uniform front that's, you know, kind of, I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little torn on the caps or not the caps, so throw it out there and see what people think about it. But I thought I just wanted to add something to those corners as they felt a little open on their own, and sort of, I don't know, ties it together and breaks it up a little bit visually. Maybe it's a little too much. Sometimes I can get a little busy with adding in adornment, but I really like the overall pillar structure of this. Very formidable. I'm starting to run out of a little bit of time here, so I'm going to show you these boards that are in the back here in the next video. I'll do a short one on that, but I wanted to talk about the grate. The grate that I originally developed for these, using styrene and then adding in rivets at all the union points, as you can imagine, to get this perfectly straight and level and to add the rivets in at the center of each of these junctions took quite a while. And so it was my interest to really cast this as a whole piece so that I could produce it both multiple times for this project as well as have the mold for remaining projects in the future, whereby this kind of grate might make a nice entrance to a castle or various other kinds of entrances, maybe a blocking a mountain entrance or something of that sort. Well, casting this is a bit of a trick. This is the mold that I made for it, and I'm using a little bit of rubber that's a little bit too soft really for this kind of casting to make two-part molds, but I made it extra thick so that it would give me a little leeway there. And I'll show you the inside of what I've been doing. The inside of the mold features the original piece, of course, in cutout, you know, in sort of relief. And it was decided after I was talking with somebody else about this that by casting it at an angle, I can put vents at all of the tips of all of these points to release air from all of this, because if I cast it this way and I have one pour spout here, say, and one air vent here, all of these are going to trap air all along the way, and these corners are likely to trap air as well. So I placed it at an angle, and then you can see in the, this is the most recent casting I've attempted, added vent holes for all of the corners of each of these pieces, and actually after subsequent casts of having difficulty in filling the bottom, added a vent all the way at the bottom to help let the resin flow down to the bottom and push it out here. And it does seem like the vents are working very well. As you can see, this is filled with resin all the way to the top of the mold. Problem is, as you may notice, is I am getting some bubbles in it. The bubbles are kind of a mixed bag. They've been showing up in different spots depending on, each pour. And so the problem is that, of course, I can't get a complete cast every time that's bubble free, and that's my main objective. But secondarily, at least I can get the majority of the mold bubble free. Let's see if I can demold. Oh, this is still soft. Well, I did pour that a little bit not too long ago. It takes a couple hours for it to fully harden. But you can see here that in a large section of it, it is relatively bubble free, and this allows me to do cutouts for specific, entrances where and you can see what that's going to look like when it's cut out and then recessed within the door. You get a sense of that at least. So sections of it are definitely usable because most of it isn't filled with bubbles, but there are, you can see in this cast, quite a few bubbles. It's been a bit of a challenge. So if anybody has any thoughts on how to improve the overall mold design, I'm willing to make another go at it. As a mold I'd really, really like to master, and how I can maybe vent this slightly differently. And I'm really looking for people who have some experience in mold making, because if you haven't really worked with silicone molds and urethane plastics in casting, well, I'll take suggestions from anybody, of course, but it can be a little tricky to understand what's going on here if you haven't had any previous experience in it. But at least it gives you a little window into one way. This is the pour spout here. It gives you a little window into some of the difficulties of trying to cast a complicated piece without injection molding, say, from a company like Games Workshop or Privateer Press. Pretty tricky stuff, so I'm going to keep working on that. So, it's a lot to fit into a video. I hope I didn't go too fast. I did want to squeeze in that mold though, just to get maybe some feedback, and again, as a little treat for people who are curious about how mold making can be done for complicated pieces. This is at least my first attempt at such a multi-vented mold to try to get rid of air bubbles. Pretty challenging, actually. And of course, feedback on that's always welcomed. And also to let you know that I'll be putting out another video very quickly. It's going to discuss these boards that I have behind me here, but I don't want to squeeze in too much in this video, and I'll talk a little bit about how these have been painted, as they've been painted to try to produce a 1-inch grid that's very subtle for Dungeons & Dragons play. So I want to thank you, of course, for joining me for another TerranScapes video, and of course, keep your eye on the channel. I'll have other videos coming out pretty soon, not only these boards, but I've got a color change for the Martian board set that's coming out pretty nicely, and that'll be done pretty soon, I'm hoping, so I'll get to show you that real soon. So until then, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.